Yeah, so we could just start it off. Start it off. Yes, I'm with the amazing. First,
Hey,
introduce yourself. Give me your name, what
Okay.
you do, and your level. Yes, please.
My name is Namata Serumagomasasi. My roots are in Uganda, but I live in Accra. I'm an architect and a Pan-Africanist activist.
Smooth, smooth. And of course, this is K.Y.R.A TV, all that good stuff. I'm just trying to get this done
Yes.
in the beauty of the energy that is made. And we just had an amazing kind of like meeting, anti-establishmentarianism, but just really voicing our opinions on some things. And so again, this is really an interview about Pan-Africanism and about how the African diaspora and the African population on the mainland can unite, I think bridge the differences that befall our people. So the first question is, what is your opinion on the current state of Africa generally, or if you want to be more specific, of Ghana? What is your opinion of the current state?
Ghana is not where it could have been. We were at the forefront of the independence push. We became a model for what is possible, and we were one of the key figures in pushing towards a united Africa. As we can see, Africa is not united yet.
Not at all. Yeah.
And as a result, Nkrumah told us unite or perish. And as a result of us failing to unite, the whole continent is suffering. We're dealing with a lot of poverty. We're dealing with neo-colonial interference. We're dealing with corrupt puppets who are put in place by these neo-colonialists.
It's true, it's true.
And so the African is not being provided the dignity or granted the dignity that is their right.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate truth of our reality.
Yeah, and the ones that do get in those positions and are like liberators are martyred and taken from us, or these, because it's not always where it's just like horrible leadership, horrible leadership. But we do have amazing leaders. They are deposed. They are, whether it be the CIA or any kind of external force or power, they are removed to destabilize those economies and better sap those resources.
That's exactly what's happening. You have the likes of Thomas Sankara, who was assassinated, and again, a puppet was put in place. Blaise Compaoré became the person, who betrays him. You have across the board. You have any time a person is speaking for what Africa actually needs, and Africa for Africans, creating a space that not only empowers us, but dignifies us, and that allows us to live a life that reflects the wealth that we have. Anytime anyone stands in that space and says that we can do it, they are removed.
That's true.
It's been happening for decades now.
That's fair. That's real. So that's very good. First question and first answer. Okay. Second question. When you hear the words African American, what are the first things that come to mind?
So when we were growing up, America was where everyone wanted to be, right?
Okay.
And so when you heard African American, it's like, oh, the Africans who are actually there, right?
Okay.
But then as you get a little older, you start to hear about, the transatlantic slave trade, recognizing that, your enslaved brothers and sisters were stolen from this continent, and that we lost a lot of people. Who were then treated in the most horrific ways on that side of the world. I think of the African American as one who has been able to overcome incredible adversity, and one who needs to come home. I'm not saying this in terms of permanence, but needs to have that connection back to the continent as a process of reclamation, a process of reconciliation, rediscovering who one is in that sort of sense of entirety. You cannot, as a person, be detached from where you came from. So much of who we are is carried in our heritage. You need to have a reference point in order to be able to sort of reconcile who you are as an entire person. This is not to say that people in the US, Africans in the US, are not whole beings, but there is something that is to be benefited from touching ground, touching base, and saying, this is where I came from,
It's true.
And so it's important for us to facilitate that.
And they call it, the young kids anyway, touch grass, which means go outside.
Exactly.
It's a different grass here. There's a different energy and vibration and just frequency here. It's a different culture here. And,
it is.
And not to say that we aren't missing anything. I think African Americans, and I'm gonna push it a little further. I'm just gonna say this.
Okay.
I think African Americans are missing something. You know, they are missing their connection to their ancestral home. Just
Sure.
period.
Yeah.
Everyone who is in America, other than Native Americans who have, in terms of indigenous Americans, have an entire very traumatic history as well in terms of genocide. Everyone else is there voluntarily, you know, and so it takes you taking this autonomy back, saying, "Hey, I'm still here involuntarily," whether it be a year ago in terms of quote unquote 1619, and we know we started being moved much earlier than that day, but whether it was a year ago after that or 400 years ago, we are still here without our own full participation or like voluntary acknowledgement or fruition. And so I think there is a gap, a void, a space in all African Americans, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, where you do need to like tap back in. Again, my phone wasn't working initially.
Yep.
When your phone doesn't work, you bring it to Apple, you bring it to Samsung. In the States, when you are broken as an African American, where do you go?
To where you were made. You're supposed to go to where you're made.
Exactly, but there's no place there that can resolve the things that we are dealing with. So it's like you have to come back to the source, to the place that made you. And so I wanted to just say that really quick, and then still push a little deeper. Now, I love the answer, and I just want to push a little deeper in terms of even the stereotypes, because I know you gave me more of the academic and collegiate answer, and then I know Africans in general, hear some things about African Americans and the diaspora that is sometimes, problematic and vice versa. So I want to hear those. those. Give us the tea. They say, give us the tea.
So, well, the truth of it is, because of what is covered in the media, a lot of what we tend to see is essentially hip hop culture, not necessarily the positive side of it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what we are exposed to in general tends to be a sort of a very small aspect of the greater whole. So like even when you're looking at a certain lifestyle, you're not even getting a whole comprehensive picture, and it's also being given without context. And so we are told that, or we are shown a people who have a tendency towards violence and things like that. So it tends to be a specific sort of thing that is preached, or you get the sort of super Afrocentric character, the person who's really looking for home, and it's sort of presented in that sort of sense. And every so often, then you're shown the ones who you're told have become, in a sort of derogatory way, Oreos, in that sense, who have sort of divorced themselves from their blackness in terms of,
in terms of like the substance. Yeah, you got white on the outside, but black on the outside, but white in the field.
Exactly, And so those tend to be the sort of stereotypes that are peddled, if you want to call it that, in this direction. And it's not necessarily seen as a negative thing. I think I should emphasize that because we have been sort of taught to appreciate America as a whole, without looking critically at the reality of the situation, the history that is creating those sorts of environments and creating certain situations, and without actually looking at how African Americans have been able to overcome so much of their conditions in order to become the rich and textured people that they are.
I feel that, and I do get you in terms of it's still the stereotypes, but it's not always so like critically assessed or attained or like acknowledged. It's still like, oh yeah, they do that, but then those African Americans, it's still cool. It's still like, there's.
And a lot of us aspire to it. You see a lot of people looking and emulating
those, and sometimes unhealthy behaviors just because it's cool because it's from the diaspora and more specifically African Americans. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is how can we unite more? In your opinion, how can African Americans and the diaspora, because again, it's not just about African Americans, it's about the Caribbean, it's about Central America, it's about Brazil, it's about South America and all the other places that we reside, and Africans on the mainland. How can we unite more, in your opinion?
One of the things that I don't think we're interrogating enough at the moment is the class dimension.
Okay.
So, Nkrumah speaks about how class struggle predates the colonial encounter, predates our encounter with the West as a whole, with Europe, with the US, and all of that. And the reason I think that's important, I think, is best exemplified when you look at the current situation where you have a lot of people coming home, a lot of African Americans coming home, bringing dollars,
It's true.
spending dollars, and actually finding themselves in a position where they then become the upper class within the society because they're spending in dollars. And so you hear, like, you see a lot of videos of people saying, "Oh, I bought a house for just $100,000. That's a huge amount of money."
Yeah.
And so basically, what's actually happening is a lot of people are coming home and then not actually being fully integrated into the society. So they're coming home, but it becomes a sort of isolated home. It's a silo within the home. And that's not towards integration.
Yeah.
So we really have to sort of have an awareness of the class dimension of what is happening. And we also have to recognize that in one space, we may be the underprivileged, in others, just by virtue of the fact of where we have been, we may be the other side of things. And once we have that awareness, then it becomes easier to start making those connections and to start engaging in a manner that actually truly promotes the integration that should be happening. We shouldn't have African Americans coming home and then creating isolated societies. They should be coming home and being immersed in the culture with their brothers and sisters. And we need to also be doing better to receive them. Because of that lack of awareness and because of the fact that we're all coming from underprivileged situations, we also have a lot of people taking advantage of it.
It's true.
So people are coming with dollars on our side. We also have people saying, "I am broke. I'm going to take advantage of them." You see what I'm saying? So once we start to properly analyze the sort of class dimension of what is happening, then we are actually able to meet each other in the recognition that actually we have to unite in order to sort of elevate all of us. So it's not about just sort of trying to better yourself as an individual or your small community, but recognizing that we actually have to elevate the black person.
Exactly.
Right? And so once we're able to examine that and to critically sort of address that, then when an African comes home from the diaspora and they are situated in our society, they are able to operate in such a manner that doesn't again create a situation where they are divorced from the general society. And then on our front, we also need to be educated on that front so as to ensure that it properly happens.
There's some unity and not the rigidity. Because I often have conversations with colleagues as well as professors where, Africans and African Americans or Africans and African diaspora speak on two different levels. And it's usually, Africans having this very cultural capital and this political capital, knowing themselves, knowing the power behind their independence and that struggle and that journey and that self-determination that comes from it. And African diasporans, whether it be Caribbeans or African Americans, Brazilians, they have a financial capital where they might not have those other qualities, cultural capital to a degree, but it's within a very imperial or colonial system or Western system, political capital to a degree, but it's in the same guise. So, but that capital, in terms of financial capital, is very valuable, and so it's always like we have these strengths and we have these apparent weaknesses in both groups, and it's just knowing that we each literally have the puzzle piece for each other's puzzle piece. And it's needed. So I like the social class, rather like the economic class system in terms of, that's always been apparent, even before colonialism, even before enslavement. And just in terms of the African, milieu in terms of culture. We'll end with one more thing. This is a kind of a new question. And I do want to bring up more of my thesis here. So, I have to. And of course, she consents to this. I'm following all the ethical protocol. Okay. I know,
I'm sure you are.
But you do consent to this, of course. I'm playing, she's just What do you feel is the overall outcome of the year of return, beyond the return, and how other countries, in terms of African countries, are either following suit or being agents against African and just in terms of Pan-African unity? Because they're agents for and they're agents against. So how do you feel about, again, the year of return and its success, beyond the return and its success, and how it's been able to either promulgate that Pan-Africanist agenda, and or either like in terms of Kenya moving to, sending militia to Haiti and being kind of an agent against Pan-Africanism. Yeah. So how do you feel?
Sure. Well, with regards to the year of return, beyond the return, and all of that, I think it's important to recognize that it was set up within a capitalist system, and therefore it was towards extraction. Right? Now, that does not mean that there were not people involved with it who had the right idea. I know there are people behind year of return and beyond the return who are genuinely about the reclamation of our identities and about the sort of reconciliation of the people who were lost and the people who were stolen from. Right? But unfortunately, in the past few years, we've also seen a lot of situations where there's just pure exploitation of that. It's basically become a tool for, well, like I said, building capital, right? You've got the sort of the tourist aspect of it, you've got people coming in and wanting to invest locally and all that kind of thing. And so that's the unfortunate side of thing. I don't think, again, they're not addressing the critical things that need to be addressed in order to finally bring us back together. And I think that's part of what's creating that situation where you have people coming home and then living isolated from the reality. So that is problematic. Now, the fact of the matter is that at the moment, in the years of Nkrumah, it was the state that was pushing Pan-Africanism. You had Ghana, you had other nations working together, pushing for this united Africa. There were some differences in it. You had the people who were saying immediately, some people saying in the future, but the general consensus was that we needed to work towards African unity, right? But now what we have, when you're dealing with a continent under the sort of capture of neocolonialism, is a bunch of states whose it's not in their interest for us to unite.
Of course.
It is not in their interest for them to unite. The leaders, at least, it's not in their interest. And so what is happening is you are seeing an emergence of Africans outside of state entities who are now pushing that African unity agenda. And so when you look at beyond the return and the fact that it's under the state, then you can see that there will be issues that are not towards Pan-Africanism. I hear that the Dirty December in Nigeria this past December was hugely expensive. And so a lot of people realized that they were just going to come back to Accra because it's like, at least we can party on a relative budget. That kind of thing. So basically it's becoming a tool of extraction, not just the state, but with anyone who's just about extraction. So what needs to happen is for those who recognize the need for unity on the continent, those who understand the long-term agenda behind it and are willing to put their minds, their actions, their words behind it, that people's organization for African unity needs to sort of emerge out of all of this. It's not going to be the states that unite us, it's going to be the people who finally get us to the point that we were supposed to have reached 60 years ago.
Because the state is, one, in shambles, and then two is, it has its ulterior motives as much as it is for that, as you mentioned, Pan-Africanist feel.
Ruto sending people to Haiti, that was shameful. But Ruto has been in the pockets of the Americans since he entered into power, so it's also not shock. It's not a surprise. Right? So there's that need for understanding.
Yes. How you doing, Prof? You're in my interview. This is my professor. It's okay. He's good.
Come back, Doc.
It's okay. I got your ethical consent. I'm playing. But that's really good. Okay, I know we kind of getting long, so I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm gonna like actually walk out the frame, but I want you to say, "Dear Black woman, it is okay too." And then you fill in the blank. Like, what do you, as a kind of your message to my viewers? I got hundreds of millions of viewers. Yes.
Wow.
Supporters, K.Y.R.A TV. So again, dear Black woman, it is okay too.
Wow. Dear Black woman, it is okay to take up space. It's okay to exist as you are. You do not need to shrink in any space. You do not need to hide your intelligence. You do not need to conform to what people are desiring of you. You are beautiful. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are the most incredible creature to walk the face of this earth. You, Black woman, are everything that is needed for this world to move forward. So do not hold yourself back.
Thank you. That's a wrap.